So glad that you could join us today on Z Live. I'm Shivago Lang, your host. Always my pleasure to be with you. And, it's interesting. The hurricane isn't here yet, and it's quite some distance away. But outside has the air of impending storm. Like there's this air of eeriness about the atmosphere. There's this overcast feel, and let me tell you something. I live in Grand Bahama, and trust me, people down in Grand Bahama are just like frustrated. It's like this is like now a weekly event. It feels like, and many of them are still trying to recover from the effects of the last storm and the effects of Wilma and Jane, Francis and Jane, and then Wilma. Remember, it was Francis and Jane 1 year, and then it was Wilma. And Wilma acted so odd in those years, that period of time, that she left and come back and visit West End Grand Bahama. It's tough, but listen, man, do what you have to do. Prepare, listen to the guidance, listen to the advice, do what you have to do to safeguard your life. Do what you can to safeguard your property, but that can be replaced, or even if not replaced, you just could say goodbye to it. But that life of yours is your life. So take care of it, protect it, listen to the alerts, do whatever preparations you can do. If you believe you're going to be in an unsafe structure, leave it. Leave the place. Go someplace where you'll be safe. Don't let's play this courageous game of I'm going to batten down and I'm going to stick it out nonsense, because you're going to put your life in jeopardy and you're going to put other people's lives in jeopardy who have to come and rescue you in the middle of storms. We don't want to do that. We don't want to play with this storm this time around. Don't let's kick up about who ain't doing what. You do what you have to do, please, so that we don't have any fatalities, we don't have any unnecessary accidents or incidences, and that, we remain safe in the circumstance. But this is a trying time. It's a trying time. Anyways, we can talk about something a little more upbeat today. I am delighted to have with me today in the studio Dr. Reginald Eldon, who's the Dean of Queen's College's Center for Further Education, and Latasha Strawn, who's the Director of Academic Affairs of Queen's College Center for Further Education. I'm just really grateful that they are in here. Education has been on the minds of people of late, in particular, as exam results came out and people have weighed in on the extent to which they confirm or don't confirm how we are progressing in terms of education. But just by the same token, there are people who are out there focused on doing what we can. And I'm assuming that this Queen's College Center for Further Education is just that. So welcome.
Thank you so much.
Welcome, Latasha, and welcome, Dr. Eldon. So let's talk about the center first. What's its mission?
Well, Queen's College started the Center for Further Education way back in 1989.
Okay.
And in fact, Mr. Philip Cash, the late Mr. Philip Cash, who later became the principal of Queen's College, was appointed the first dean of CFE at QC. And his purpose was mainly to help to structure and organize an additional area of Queen's College education. Right now we had Early Learning Center, we call it foundation years now, primary school and high school. And then his task, his mission was to create a fourth level where we would cater to people who had already left school and needed to improve their education, adults in the community, and also to offer after-school classes for students who may be on the QC campus. That continued with highs and lows. It went peaks and valleys. So Mr. Cash became the principal of QC, and then he later died from cancer. And then the school appointed one or two people consecutively to be in charge of CFE, and after that, in the last 2 or 3 years, maybe the principal, Miss Gibson, Andrea Gibson, always wanted to create, as it is, a fourth level of Queen's College, so that you have straight from kindergarten to adult tertiary level education. And so last year in September, we appointed a new staff group. We hired a person who would serve as the registrar. We hired a person who would serve as the program director, and then Mrs. Strawn was hired to serve as the director of academic affairs. So in this new structure, we have our own building with our own set of offices and classrooms right at the beginning of the QC campus on the right-hand side, near to Village Road. And we have been operating for a year, doing all sorts of wonderful things. And I want Mrs. Strawn to talk a little bit about what some of that activity has been about, and how we wish now to influence the lives of young Bahamian people in two distinct categories. Young Bahamians who have slipped through the cracks, did not get their BGCSEs, didn't get maths, did not get English, for instance. People who feel as though they need a little bit more additional help, to make it. And then people who basically have thought that once they became an adult, learning and growth and development and education for them was something that was finished. We are saying it's not finished. Doesn't matter how old you are, and there are new trades to learn, new skills, new development, new personal growth, and we want to provide that kind of place, the environment in which people can come without feeling threatened or without feeling afraid or scared, and also have a little bit of fun about moving their life on.
This to me, this is just so fascinating because, people see something happening and they just don't consider how much work it takes to get it done. But so people, like for instance, just running a school is work enough for me. But on top of that, the school decides, okay, that's not enough. We're going to now reach out to people who are not in the school. To me, that's enormously impressive that a school would take on that additional. But I'd say burden in the good sense. It's a task.
Yes. We don't see it as a burden. We see it more as an opportunity and a challenge. And one of the things that this little venture has taught me is how available in our community, in our country, the availability of competent people to come in to be able to work with a program like this from day one. Wow. That has impressed me. I'm just amazed.
It is really something, and quite frankly, can represent a bit of a model elsewhere, because we oftentimes talk about the extent to which our facilities like schools in communities don't get sufficient utilization and have the opportunity to provide more services after school hours and the like.
Right.
And here is a situation that is akin to that.
Yes, we want to impact the culture about education.
Okay.
We are definitely a society that believes in education. We understand the value of education, and we push it from K through 12.
Right.
And then you see a little bit of a narrowing where you have certain economic groups pushing beyond 12th grade. Now we're looking at colleges and universities, and we want that culture to change. We want people to be lifelong learners. We want this department to be a natural extension of Queen's College, which is a leadership school. We run the Leader in Me program there, which is a Stephen Covey leadership program. It's doing very well through the K through 12 years, and if we are true to that, then we know that education does not stop because you have graduated with BGCSEs. We want you to embrace all opportunities for further education, whether it is to get a degree or whether it is to earn a certificate. I personally feel like as long as you're willing to keep reading, I'm satisfied. I'm satisfied as an educator that you are staying engaged.
And this this notion of lifelong learning has been pushed now from my own perspective, at least 20, 30 years that I've heard emphasis on about it. I'm not sure it's caught a fire as much as I think we would like, because people still compartmentalize education, it seems, in that kind of narrow book, kind of test-taking thing, as opposed to, there are practical problems out there. If we had the expertise, if we had capability, we could do it. I know people who go into, for instance, the Home Depot, learn how to tile, and then tile their own homes. They go into Home Depot and learn how to do masonry work, and so it's kind of functional.
Yes, they are. It's education around problem solving, and life has a multiplicity of problems that we can solve if we educate ourselves. But when we build education around something as abstract as test scores, very finite, and not able to translate into problem solving, it's hard to stay motivated by test scores, especially beyond high school, when high school is kind of a place where you're insulated for some young people at least, and then for others they're not even insulated. They are facing real world problems, and they're like, these test scores are not doing enough for me.
Absolutely.
And so to use education as a problem solving tool automatically builds in that need, that desire, that motivation to continue learning, because you will continue solving your life's problems.
Yeah, and I spent 3 months of my life in Japan, and I was able, therefore, to get a greater understanding of why the Japanese work ethic is what it is. People think it's because Japanese just like to do schoolwork. They don't like to do schoolwork. The Japanese people understand that they occupy a size landmass that's so small compared to their population that they have to almost work 3 times as hard as people in the United States to get the same size land for their household. That means they have to compete fiercely in the marketplace. So they go and do the work because the top tier people are the ones that get ahead. You wonder why are so many young men from the Dominican Republic recruited for baseball? Not because they love baseball only. This is a way out.
Yes.
And so when you see a class, a certificate that gives you revenue earning ability, for instance, I can write programs, I can write applications. Of course I'm going to go do that because I get to have something, but not just abstract. I just learned something for learning's sake. I got a good test score on something. It's functional.
It has to be functional, and that's what we want to see happen at Center for Further Education. The courses that we present to the public every term. This term we have things that are just one-day certificate classes in the business fields, like customer service, the usual, workplace culture, and then we have the GCSE review classes for persons who would want to retake the exam, specifically for those who want to retake to get a higher score. We want to make sure that the things that we are presenting are going to be translatable. We have a lot of persons that call in and they ask, okay, tell me what's going to be covered. I want to make sure that this is going to line up with what it is I'm doing here on this job, or I'm looking to change this job. Is this going to help me to move forward? And that's what we want to see from students. We want them to start applying this to real life circumstances. How is my education going to move my life forward? And I believe that was a question that more young persons in high school years could answer. We would see dramatic changes in our test results. Then it clicks, the light is on, this makes sense. This is a problem-solving tool. My life can change because of this.
Absolutely. My 2 sons know that they are in college, university. I told them. I asked them, why you go to university? Invariably, they used to say, well, because I'm going to improve my life. And I said, really? I said, well, that's a waste of my money. They said, well, because I'm going to go get me a degree. I said, well, that's another waste of my money. What you mean? What are you talking about? So I said, well, listen, if you're not going to school so that you can get expertise in solving some problems in a particular field of study, then why are you going? That's the challenge. The challenges will come out of school and be a fixer of problems in that particular area. And you want it to be, you want when people call for someone to solve that problem, you want to call your name. So that's what you do. And back then, they now have a different approach to their learning. It's a learning tied to living in the world, not a learning tied to, well, I got a 3.8 in university and that makes me fit for the world. Nobody's interested in your 3.8. They're interested in whether you have something of a skill to offer.
Yeah, and I think we have, and I have to tread carefully here because Queen's College consistently gets some of the best grades in the country and the best passes and the best scholarships. But we have to get away from the fact that the emphasis is only on the grade and the number of BJCs you can get. You can get a situation where you have a young man who had no formal education, left high school when they were 14 or whatever. I know a particular guy that I know this happened for. He is one of the most successful business people that I know. And yet, if you put him down to read kind of progressive academic document, he probably couldn't read it. If you asked him to debate and act, he couldn't do it. But he's made all sorts of money. He has started 4 or 5 different businesses, and something about his entrepreneurial ability and his spirit and his drive, if we can capture what it is he has and put that into an educational model that we can then offer, I think we will be on the road to something. But just getting the degree, like you said with your 2 sons, it isn't enough. There's got to be something else.
Yeah, and this is one of the reasons why this, I understand the grades. I really do. I understand. And I tell my kids, you strive for an A. Why? Because excellence, striving for excellence has to be part of your natural instinct in the world. I said, so try. But to have people simply focus in on whether you got an A, it just does not accord with the experience of the world.
And also, the people who are getting the A's are not the majority of people. That's the smallest group of people.
For sure.
And so when we look at Bahamian culture, and you look at, I have this great belief in what numbers and masses in terms of the largest group does, because the largest group makes the most noise. The largest group also determines how the culture is going to move.
Sure.
And so if your little group of A's, students who's getting A's, are only like 6% of the whole country, then what you need to focus on is where are those other 94% of our people?
What do they do?
What's going to happen with them in their life?
Exactly.
How are they going to contribute to society? Because either they're going to contribute or they're going to drain.
But what's interesting is the research definitely shows that the vast majority of entrepreneurs in the world are C or average students.
Isn't this amazing?
This is I mean, you go out there, check it out, ladies and gentlemen. Google search it, that you will find that the A and B students end up working for the C students.
Yes.
That's not to ask people to strive for C's,
right,
but there's something about it that says that the emphasis in education can't entirely be on grades. There is another element, like you say.
So let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Why do you think, how does that come about that the greatest entrepreneurial skills are resting with people who are not the smartest academics?
Because what the research seems to bear out to some degree is that the skill set for entrepreneurship is a different skill set than test taking or pure academics. That this notion of persistence, that this notion of risk taking, that this notion of dogged determination, that people who are average, because of their struggle with that greater population that they're in, they have to compete more, and so they have a tendency then to have the kind of skills that's necessary for entrepreneurship.
And I'd also add to that we tend to further put A students and top students on a very narrow road.
That's true.
And the average students actually, by default, start to see the world more broadly.
Yeah.
They have an inclination without our interference to look widely.
Because their expectations are certainly different for them, eh?
Yes.
You're an A student, you're going to be a doctor, you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be Exactly.
So we create this dichotomy, be very extreme. You are either this or you are that.
Right.
We look at the bottom percentage of students and we put them at an extreme. We have the top percentage of the students, we put them at an extreme, and we want them to stay in their lanes. We don't really support parallel tracks running at the same time. The average student that falls in the middle, the average Bahamian that falls in the middle, knows how to take that full-time job plus that part-time job and run that business out of their car if they have to, because they were not boxed in by their talent nor by their lack of ability.
Interesting. We're going to go to a break, but we're going to take this call first before we do so, and then we're going to go to a break. We are here talking with the Dean and Director of Academic Affairs of the Queens College Center for Further Education. Go ahead, caller. We're listening to you.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How you doing?
Very welcome.
Great.
I'm calling to say that, yes, absolutely, C-average seem to be the guys who run the world in terms of being the CEOs, the bosses. And it seems that sheer tenacity is the requirement there for success in business. I'm an entrepreneur as well, and I own 3 different businesses here in the Bahamas that have all been successful. I've also been an academic. I'm one of the few that I know who's an A student and also became successful in business. But I can tell you there's a huge difference between one and the other.
Absolutely.
Being successful in test taking was a skill that I had. It was just natural. But also being successful in business undertakings was very different. The nature of it is very, very different. It's an interpersonal skill that's involved in having to sell whatever service or product that you're representing. It's a way of being able to ascertain what skill set you bring to the table and what is required, and to find those other skill sets elsewhere. And absolutely, there's a huge difference between the two. I find the academic side to actually be more difficult. Being an entrepreneur making money is easier than being a top-notch academic, I believe, in terms of the difficulty of the task. And, people like Einstein or Stephen Hawking or great physicists, great minds, Tesla, all of those who have changed our worldview, changed technology, changed science. Those people were not necessarily did not necessarily have a specific task at hand when they went to university. They didn't specifically, like you were saying, that with your children, you want them to absolutely be able to define problems that they're going to be able to solve. But a more generalist approach, as with Einstein, even though much more rare, because very few minds like that, actually produce the greatest effect and the greatest result in the long run. So I believe we got to let all of that flow. We got to let all of that take place. Encourage even those daydreamers, even though only 1 in 100 will bear fruit. So that's just my contribution.
No, thank you very much. You've been quite articulate and clear on that. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Z Live. I'm Shivago Lang, your host. So glad you can join us today. We're talking to Dr. Reginald Eldon, Dean of Queens College Center for Further Education and the Director of Academic Affairs for that center, Latasha Straw. When we come back, We'll talk more education, further education in this instance. We'll be back after this break. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Z Live. I'm Chicago Lang, your host. I'm so glad that you could join us today. Don't forget that you can call us on 323-6232 or 325-4316 or 325-4259. We're online at GuardianTalkRadio.com, so you can listen to our live audio feeds or our live video feeds. You can also listen to us on Cable Bahamas Channel 969 or BTC Flow Channel 612. You can text us today on 422-4796. We'd love to hear from you. We're talking further education today with Dr. Reginald Eldon, Dean of Queens College Center for Further Education, and Latasha Strong, Director of Academic Affairs. Latasha, if you don't mind me calling you that now. We know that people learn differently. And so, how does the center approach its offerings with that in mind?
Well, to accommodate various learning styles, as a facilitator, it is the onus is on you to make sure that your technique and the materials that you give are able to reach that range, whether you're dealing with someone who is visually stimulated, someone who's a kinesthetic learner, likes to work with their hands, someone who needs movement in order to think, and all of those things. But more importantly, at the adult level, is to be guided by the student.
Okay.
That's one of the things that is my passion as an educator, is seeing learners take on that leadership role and be able to articulate for themselves. You see, it's always rested with us as the educators to know your learning style.
Right.
That's my great mystery to figure out, as opposed to empowering young people to know themselves.
Okay.
And to be able to come to the classroom setting and say, this is what I've learned about myself.
Mm-hmm.
I need to take notes. This works for me. Or this is what I've learned about myself.
Right.
I would learn better if you allow me to stand in this class.
Okay.
You know, so we encourage our facilitators to come with a student-centered mindset.
Now, this means two things. This means for the student that you have to take courage, eh?
Oh,
because,
yes.
we see the teacher as the authority, and therefore I don't want to cause any...
it can be jarring.
Exactly.
It can be jarring for students. I will not deny that at all. Right. But it's our job to help you to become more comfortable with your process and your journey.
So you as the teacher, that's the second thing. You can't be ego-driven. You have to see...
Not at all.
This is a partnership. Let's see how we can make this work.
I am here pretty much as an educational tour guide for you.
Okay.
You have to know where you want to go as an adult learner. And then I am there to facilitate that journey, that experience for you. So when we get into learning styles, I don't want to just make a pronouncement about you. Mm-hmm. I don't know you better than you know yourself.
Right. Okay.
So we want to work together to honor your experiences thus far as an adult and help you to acknowledge some things about yourself, and then how do we then make that a part of this experience so you can get the optimum benefit and achieve your personal goals for being here.
And I think just to say that one of the real important aspects of this with Latasha's approach has been that she is very careful in who she will choose or select to be a teacher or facilitator in a class. And one of the things we have around CFE is that, yes, they can teach. Can they teach adults? Mm-hmm. So we don't want to assume that just because a person is qualified as a teacher and they can teach primary kids or high school kids, the approach is completely different when you're dealing with adults. Just come to one of my day seminars where I'm facilitating, and I could show you it ain't the same thing. Yes, absolutely different. And that's one of the things she has imparted in the selection of who teaches which course and how because and then the other thing that we have built in, Mr. Lang, is that we have built in an evaluation tool whereby the students have to tell us how that teacher did in their estimation and how their learning skills were achieved. Okay. Because you can't get into a habit of just repeating people who are not being able to teach
effectively.
and effectively. Yes.
Sure. Now, if somebody is not able to read, not able to write, is this something that the center addresses?
At the moment, no, we do
Okay,
not.
okay.
And I have no problem saying that.
Yeah.
We do have agencies in the Bahamas.
No, that's right.
that
The
do
Ministry
that,
of
and
Education
we're
does
not
that.
interested in reinventing the
Okay,
wheel.
right.
We would like to fit into the larger
Okay.
landscape
Mhm.
of further education
Right.
and higher education in
Sure.
the country, and we're not trying to
Do everything.
do everything.
Okay,
No,
no.
we can't do everything. We're not
Yeah.
interested.
I thought it might be a question people have
That's a
out
good
there.
question.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure that
But
they know.
When
Yeah.
persons do ask us, we try to refer them.
Right.
If we're not offering what you need, we're going to do our very best to
Yeah.
direct you to where you need to be, because again, this is your learning journey. We want you to own your
Mhm.
experience. We don't really want to just grab you and like hold you hostage to our program.
Right.
We need you to end up where you want it to be because of what we're doing.
And interestingly enough, Project Read is located on the QC
Yes.
campus, right
Right next
across.
door to it.
Right
Oh, really?
across.
This
Yes.
is the Ministry of Education's Read program, or is this a different program?
This one is a
This is
private program.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Project Read, but
Okay.
it's big in the Bahamas. It's been
Yeah.
operating for a number of years, and Queens College gave office space and classroom space
Okay.
to that organization
Excellent,
to operate on our campus. So it's right across the road from where we are.
Okay, so you have
yeah.
Project Read there, and then I know you can contact the Ministry of Education's offices there on Marquis Street.
Yes.
I
Yes.
think that's their either their continuing learning center or something.
Yes.
They are the, where I know that they do some literacy programs out of there too. So
yes, those things are in place. I think people sometimes don't take advantage of them because of various issues with shame and stigma,
Sure.
which is a whole nother show. But we certainly encourage people to come and talk to us and believe that we are going to help to guide you, even if guiding you means guiding you away from a program that we offer. We want you to, like I keep saying, end up fulfilling the goal that you have in mind for yourself. And however we can assist, we will. And if we can, we will direct you.
So if you're somebody then who is interested in one of the offerings at the center, first of all, how do you know what the center is offering at any given point in time?
Well, we have ads that come out every semester. So our ad for this term's offering came out about 2 weeks ago in The Guardian and the other local daily. We also have our Facebook page. It is different from the main QC page. So it's Queens College Center for Further Education is our page on Facebook. Then, of course, at qchenceforth.com, that is the school's website, qchenceforth.com. And we have a tab on the main school's website. CFE is the tab, and you click there, and you can also see our offerings there. And, of course, you can call us at Queens College 393-1666, and our extension is 263, or just ask the operator for CFE.
We've got a text that says, Mr. Lang, I don't have an axe to grind with teachers, but I'm so glad I did not let school get in the way of my education. When is our school going to teach about financial literacy? It's like we have the false premise that good grades in school means good grades in life. Nothing can be further from the truth. To me, it's only through making mistakes you learn what not to do. But I would like to offer a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad by a man called Robert Kiyosaki, a real page turner on this subject without question. Robert Kiyosaki.
Yes, know the book.
Yep,
absolutely.
Some wonderful writings and has some wonderful concepts. Financial literacy.
Financial literacy is one of those things that I will tell you honestly. I was in a meeting with some HR managers over the summer, and we were talking about what some of the needs are, and that came up. And that is a course that we are developing. We were working with someone who I believe would have been an excellent instructor, but her schedule isn't quite allowing her to do it yet, but we have that course in the works. And it came out of that very same need that we have so many young people who are not able to properly manage their finances. And you say to yourself, well, if you're finished with school, you might be a little bit late to be adding that to the curriculum.
Young people. First of all, let me say to you, I did a bachelor's degree in economics. I did almost a complete MBA program at the George Washington University. I was recruited out of my MBA program to come run for politics, and I opted to do so. But I did not learn about money in either of those programs. Not money. Mm-hmm. I learned economics. I learned finance. Mm-hmm. But money is a different subject matter. Money literacy is a different matter. And the research tells us that people take on the money literacy of their parents.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
That by and large, if your parents were bad money managers, you will become a bad money manager. Or if they were good money managers, you would become a good money manager. And so we know that tells us lots of stuff right now. But financial literacy is something that has to be intentional, and it has to be really direct, and it's for children and it's for
needs
adults.
To start as young as possible for the maximum impact. And also as parents, if I might say so, we need to stop shielding our children from financial realities.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know that we have a lot of parents who are really bent on, I don't want you to have to go through what I went through, but don't negate your experiences, because that's how you became the financially savvy person that you are. Yeah. Expose your children to what's really happening and make every situation a learning environment for them.
And don't take on the shame of your financial circumstances.
No.
Bad decisions can lead to poor financial circumstances. You can make all the best decisions in the world financially and then run into a health disaster or run into a global recession and things send things out of whack. You take all of those experiences and you share them with your kids. I tell my sons once asked me if they said, "Daddy, we rich?" I said, "You don't have a dime." I said, "I'm not rich. I have some money, but I don't. But you don't have a dime. I have money." Okay, and this is when I had difficult times, I'd go to my kids and I'd tell them, "Listen, I'm explaining something to y'all. Things a little rough now. Don't be no vacation this year. And by the way, I'm not getting no Kellogg's Captain Crunch. We now going to some no-name brand cornflake. If you don't like it, that's up to you." But I didn't want them to think and pretend that everything was rosy or hunky-dory. Sometimes I told one of my sons, I said, "Listen, I can't afford to send you here. You want to go across there. I have money for there. If you could find money for over there, I'll give you what I have for you over there, and you can take that." That's exactly what he did. He found the money for there, and I gave him the money I could afford to send him there. And so you have to be real with your children. So you have too many inauthentic, pretentious people in the Bahamas who will not say to their kids, "Things rough. Daddy can't afford it. Mommy can't afford it."
So this is a saying by C.S. Lewis that I posted on my Facebook yesterday. You can't go back to change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending.
Absolutely.
And I think a lot of people, I have a friend who always tells me, "So what are you going to do when you get 80? Are you going to still be going to courses and classes and taking educational programs?" I said, "I hope I will. And I hope I never stop." But I think some people have given up on the fact that they can learn a new skill. They can approach an issue in their life. Say, for instance, one of my areas that I deal with is grief recovery and dealing with grief and loss. I thought I knew a whole lot about that. I've been to various training certifications, but in early August, I lost my brother-in-law. It was like my brother, sick in a hospital in Miami for 3 weeks. What I faced during that period turned my life completely around in terms of, and you think you know how to deal with grief.
Sure.
You don't.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is a whole new level of learning for you, Reg.
Right.
And all I'm saying is that at any stage in our lives, there is the opportunity to learn again.
And learn very
to
useful
look
things.
at things from a different point of view and a different perspective.
Yeah.
That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Well, one of our most popular classes is adult swimming.
Really?
Yeah, in the QC pool.
Well, I can imagine that, because it shocks me how many Bahamians can't swim.
Amazing, just amazing.
I was not expecting that to be one of our most popular, but it is.
It is, and it's a life. This is life saving. This is existential, because there are lots of people surrounded by water who can't swim.
I have friends who will not go in a small boat like a Boston whale or something because they're petrified because they can't swim. Yeah. And it's like, you grew up on a family island.
next to the water. How come you can't swim?
Mad at them.
An old lady in our settlement threw me off the dock, off the public dock. I couldn't swim, but I had to swim or drown when I got in there.
Now, I'm not saying this is what the Scouts encourages, right? I'm not saying this is what the Boy Scouts encourages, but one weekend, that's exactly what they did to me. They took me out to sea.
That's
and
right.
they said, if you want to get back to shore, you have to swim. Boy, dog paddle as best I could. We've got a call on the line. We can take that call. Go ahead, caller. We're listening to you.
Excuse me. Good afternoon, Mr. Lang. How you doing?
I'm good, man. Yourself?
Rocky here.
Good, good.
This is joke of the day for you.
Okay.
On your gas there. I had a friend was a bartender down by the old Nassau Beach Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
So the tourist was telling him about how nice the places and the beaches and how nice the water is and how clear the water is and everything. And the tourist asked him, hey, can you swim? So they say, no, ma'am, I can't swim. I just wait out here by the pool. The woman says, you born in the Bahamas, all this pretty water, you can't swim?
Mm.
The bartender said, no. Look at all that sky around us. I can't even fly.
Fair enough. Mind you, and people are so weird because I have a nephew. One day the kids bound by the pool.
If you'd like to make a call, please hang up and try again. If you need help, hang up and then dial your operator.
Everybody's by the pool, and so he asked if he could go in the pool. I said, but you can swim? He said, yeah, I can swim. So he asked his dad, he said, I can swim, I can swim. Daddy said, yeah, he can swim. He jumped in the water. This boy at the bottom of the pool wouldn't come up. My son had to rescue him. I said, but I thought you said you could swim. He had all of us convinced. And, there are young people in the country who believe that they can swim, having never been taught. And I think that this is excellent, something for them to take advantage of.
We have an excellent teacher who is a certified swim instructor, and so she just is completely disarming. And no matter what level you are at, no matter what inhibitions you might have, it is hard to feel uncomfortable around her. So nice. I think that's been a part of the success as well. She's just very easy with the students.
To your point about continuous learning and taking advantage of that, I have found YouTube to be one of the most useful tools for learning.
Yes.
And what was so amazing about YouTube is that Warren Buffett says he spends on average about 2 hours a day on YouTube, just learning stuff. Because it can give you courses in cosmology, geography, physics, finance, and it's just both until kids are on there just listening to music.
But that's something that I was going to say. I'm trying to remember, it was some time ago that I read about it, but one of the concerns that we as educators have with technology is not that these things aren't available. It's what are our young people doing on their
engaging
devices?
it primarily for entertainment.
Exactly. So you're on YouTube looking at all the music videos for the top 10, and you're not actually there learning things. And I say to my kids, when they come to me with a question about this or that, I'm like, you can research this.
Absolutely.
Not that I don't know, and sometimes I don't know.
Sure.
But why don't you practice researching this? You're on your device.
Yep.
Use it for that purpose. And I'd like to see more of that because it's not just the young people, even our adults are on their phones, they're on WhatsApp, they're on Facebook. No disrespect to those apps, but there's also, your browser. There are wonderful educational apps. I have one on my phone called Vocabulary Builder, and I use it just to learn new words. And, I don't open it every single day, but it's a fun thing to look at sometimes to pass the time. So we want to see people use technology differently to further their education, because it isn't necessarily that you need money to take a course. We'd love for you to take a course with an institution like ours, but don't be limited by your financial situation. Don't be limited because you are constrained with your time. You have your kids, you work shifts or whatever. Take the little time that you have and whatever resource you have, and if that's just your cell phone in your hand, turn it into a tool.
little time. You are driving on the streets of New Providence and you got bumper to bumper traffic and you got 45 minutes to wait. You got a smartphone that you can Bluetooth connect to a speaker or your phone car and bam, you on YouTube listening to some audio something. I'm not telling you anything because this is an experiment for me. I do this.
Yes.
You know, I sometimes have to drive up to Jacksonville. It's 4.5 hours. I got an audio book. I got my YouTube and I'm learning stuff. And so the time just goes that way. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Z Live. I'm Shivago Lang, your host. I'm so glad that you can join us today. We're talking with Dr. Reginald Eldon, the Dean of Queens College Center for Further Education, and Latasha Strong, who's the Director of Academic Affairs for Queens College Center for Further Education. When we come back, we'll continue our discussions with them. But right now, we're going to take a break for news. We'll be right back after this break. And at the beginning of the seminar, we always had a definition of what successful schooling was. And amongst the things we define for successful schooling is, in other words, your child has had a successful schooling experience if they walk away from it loving to learn.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, that's the first thing.
Couldn't agree more.
And then we say if you get the child to love to learn, and now you have the child who has learned how to learn, that's a second element of the successful schooling process. And then we say if you have a child that has loved to learn and learned to learn and now learns to love others, you've had a successful schooling experience. And so there are these 7 core principles that I tie into the definition of successful schooling that I say, okay, now when we finish the seminar, we're going to try and help your child to get this out of the schooling experience. That's just schooling though.
Yes.
After that,
yes,
it's the rest of life.
Yes.
And that's where further education comes in, as you say.
And we need partnerships with schools.
Mm-hmm.
Forgive me, Dr. Alden. But we do, our job would be so much easier if more schools took the approach that you just described, Mr. Lang. Because when you are dealing with persons who have shied away from education for so long, who have these notions of a formal learning environment as being, I'm going to be intimidated. People are going to think I'm dumb. They're going to tell me what I ought to know, and they're going to ridicule me if I don't learn it the way they think I ought to learn it. When that's been your experience for the better part of your formative years, and that is hard to undo. That is a serious thing to try to undo. I've taught, I started teaching almost 20 years ago, and the majority of my classroom teaching has been with adults, and that has been the number one challenge. It's getting adults to relinquish that negative experience, that feeling that they were not capable, and believe in themselves again, and believe in the process again, and redefine education for themselves and believe that they can grasp it. So absolutely, we want to see further education grow and prosper, but as you said, we've had this conversation nationally for decades now, and we're wondering, well, why haven't we made more progress than we could have? And we can't ignore those formative years where, the die is kind of cast before you get to further education.
I still think it has to do with the way we do it. I have a good friend who is in hotel management, and he's way up there in, general manager. And he was telling me we were talking about training, and we were talking about the level of service in the islands and in Nassau at restaurants and hotels. And he was telling me of experiences that he had where they brought in the trainers to do the training. And it's like the event became more important than the learning. So that even though the trainer came in, the person who was leading the whole training session, he or she, they were very good, but the people who came from the restaurants, from the pool, from the housekeeping or whatever, it was like, this was almost like a little mini vacation, that they had a day off, there was free meal, there was good meal, there was sitting up in the room in the air conditioning, and it's like the emphasis was on like, how do we look and how are we doing with this, and I think the model has to change, because I just came out of out of a weekend experience, whereby we're still in this mode for everyone's at tables or desks with notebooks and pens, and the lecturers up front with a flip chart writing down what leadership is about. The fact is that one of the things I said afterwards, what percentage of the people here in this experience will remember any of the content of what tonight was about? So I think we're continually looking for models in terms of how can we make the impact into person's lives, and as Latasha said, how do we get people to be interested in their own education and their own growth? And we have to change the models. I had a group of adults ranging from 45 to 65. And one of the women had left school when she was 14. She had never, ever gone back to school or had any formal education in her whole experience of life. I noticed her when she came in. The class had 14 people in it. And she always sat in the furthest corner of the room. And if it came to it whereby she couldn't get to that seat, she made someone else move, and she wanted that seat. And I knew her well, and I watched her, and it's like, I know what's going on here. First of all, she doesn't think she should be in this class because she doesn't have the educational ability. Secondly, she feels everybody in this class is smarter than she is. And it took me almost a year of teaching that group to get her to where she was comfortable to even contribute vocally or to share her ideas. And for the first 3 or 4 months, I never stressed anything with her. I just let her be. But then I started asking her little questions and waiting on her answers. And it's like the transformation that happened in that person was so amazing, because like by the end of the 2-year diploma course, she was able to stand up in the group of her contemporaries, her colleagues, and do anything any of the rest of those could do. Read, contribute, talk, whatever. And I think we've got, and one of the things we're trying to do at CFE, at Queen's College, is to see if we can find the environments, make the environments where people like her and other people can come in and say, I can't change the beginning, C.S. Lewis, but I can change where I am now so I can affect the outcome and the ending. And if we can get that, and we want partners with this, we want people in banks and institutions and businesses to partner with us to say, can you sponsor 10 people from various communities to come in who may not come into this program otherwise? How can we do this?
Well, interestingly, you should say that. One of the mistakes I think we make about education is to see it, even in terms of its methodology, very narrowly. In other words, the Hebrew concept of teaching is very comprehensive. So when they say, I'm going to teach my child, they are saying, I'm going to lecture my child, I'm going to show my child, I'm going to involve my child, I'm going to cultivate my child. And so there is everything. Absolutely. It's not any one thing.
Yeah.
We're having dinner, we're in the teaching process. When we go to church, we're in the teaching process. When we go to play, we're in the teaching process. So it's very comprehensive. So that, for instance, I tell people, when you come to my seminars, where I am going to present this information, that I do it by PowerPoint and otherwise, this is just the first phase of your learning. This is, I'm making sure you can't say you don't know. Because after this is the rest of it, where you go the next stage, which may be interactive, which may be a practical something, an apprenticeship, or something of that nature. And so it's very involved. But we asked the question, why has further education not taken the leap that we needed to have it take? Look at where most people who've done anything about further learning has had it done. Where has it been done? In their workplaces, where the workplaces paid for it, or it was a requirement for promotion or a salary increase.
It's very true. In my experience, I found that on average, and I ask at the start of every session I facilitate, what number of you are here because you were sent. And it always ends up being around 80 to 90% of the persons were sent and do not have a personal goal to achieve. They are there because they tell me, as they put it, they tell me I must come.
And you can't do that seminar on a weekend.
No.
That has to be on a weekday because I have to take some time off from work.
Yes, because I need to take time off from work and they pay for it.
That is very true.
And
We've been through this. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Now, I don't say that as a complaint.
Mhm.
I say it as an opportunity.
Yes.
Because you said partnership, and I'm thinking for so many things in this Bahamas, if we get employers on board, we get to move it forward.
Absolutely.
Because people will do for work what they wouldn't do for their personal selves outside of work.
And once they are there,
it catches a fire.
Exactly.
Yes.
Because now that I know what brought you here, as Dr. Eldon said, this is our new starting point. And I usually ask persons, now it's time to identify your reason for being here. Because you own your time.
Yeah.
And you own your experiences.
And this is an opportunity for you.
And this is your opportunity.
Yeah.
And this is not they made me do it. At this particular moment going forward, this is I choose to own this. And I choose to receive, if only this one thing out of the experience.
And if I get fired, and if I leave, they can't take it back from me. This skill,
I chose to own this.
this knowledge,
Yes.
this is mine.
Yes.
Business owners, business leaders, listen to me. You have the power to do so many things in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. And if you don't see if you don't see training as a cost, but as an investment, you get to transform some things about our thinking, about the way we get it done in this country that can only inure to the benefit of businesses.
Absolutely.
You can help encourage things, charitable things, voluntary things, educational, in ways that like the politician could only scream at you to try to get you to do. The preacher could only scream at you to try and get you to do, where you could whisper and say, as a company, we wish for our employees to participate this way. And we are prepared to give you, progressive companies in the United States are prepared to give you time.
Absolutely.
I know of people whose companies in the United States would give them time off so that they can volunteer and assist the hurricane victims in the Bahamas after the hurricane because they were tied to it.
Listen, during the incident I referred to when my brother-in-law was in hospital at Baptist Hospital in Miami, one of the head person, the supervisor, manager, who I can't remember her exact position, but she was in charge of the management of all of the nurses. And she came into his room time and time again. She informed me that Baptist Hospital in Miami, they do 2 outreach missions every year, one in April and one in October, whereby any person that works at Baptist Hospital, from the dining room, the cafeteria, to the nurses, to the operating room, to the technicians, to the secretaries, they sign up, and this October they're going to do a 10-day mission to Haiti. They take every possible profession. So the doctors who will go will do medical. The technicians will do, and everybody goes, and that the hospital sponsors them to go. So much so to invest and to infuse the idea that you have to do something for someone else at some point in your life. It's amazing. I stood there amazed to hear her tell, and she said she's going. And she said, this is something I do. My 2 children are right now at camp, and they've graduated from high school. They're too old for camp. But I said, no, you have to go back now to work at camp to help the people replenish those who helped you. And you have to do this.
They have kids, they have companies who will, with their employees, establish charities that they are prepared to support. And if the staff gives a donation to the charity, they will match it. So I'm saying companies have enormous ability to mobilize, to educate, to get done. But I'm so sorry. Don't hate on my man. I'm saying, listen, we are so, in the leadership of the business community in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, we are so narrow-minded about how much impact we can have, because we just look at that dollar line, and because our balance sheets are so narrowly focused. The biggest assets of companies, they say, is the human resources, and yet you never see it on a balance sheet.
No.
And you wonder why the people. But you let somebody touch that building, not cars.
And this applies also to the church.
Yes, absolutely.
We're much more. I can get. I've worked in the church all my life, and I have watched from Eleuthera to Inagua to Bimini to Grand Bahama, Abaco. I have watched leaders vote on hundreds of thousands of dollars to build a new church, or replace an organ, or put in new carpet, or put in new windows, or put in AC, or whatever.
Nobody.
All of that's important, and I want. When I was in youth ministry in my early years, I would say, well, I want 10 sponsorships to send 10 children to camp, and it's not possible.
No.
It's like, how did that come about? Where did that come from? How are we still stuck in this idea that concrete and buildings are more important than people?
Because we live in the material. That's where we live.
We live in the material. I've spent my whole career in this, and I still feel as though I haven't made much progress, because I still, up to today, it's very difficult to get people to even put 10% of what they put into infrastructure and buildings, to put that much into training individuals.
Church religious conversion need not save from egoic existence. The ego needs tangible manifestations of its achievement. So a church leader who builds a huge edifice has an ego that is able to confirm in material sense what it has done. It cannot, by virtue of saying, look at the minds of these children, look at the minds of these people, look at the way they think, and say to itself, look what great things we have done together. And so what do we do to boost our egos? We go for the things that massage it. Nice edifices, nice cars, and big ceremonies, and big crowds, etc. And so nobody gets up there and say, listen, ma, we trained 500 young people this year alone in X, Y, and Z. Boast about that for what? I can't see that every day. How many people give to that?
And it's compartmentalized. We believe that that's someone else's job to do. And that someone else is the government, that is the ministry, that is the university. That may even be Queen's College Center for Further Education. There's always someone else that should do it for us. And then corporate Bahamas sometimes gets very frustrated at the quality of the persons they get.
So then the question is, and I felt your passion. I have been there. I'm still there. I know that I know the benefit of people training people. One of the things that Miss Gibson, the principal of QC, has taught me really well is that it doesn't affect real change if only you or one or two people have the experience and the transformation. And one of the things I learned from the latest person we had at QC with the 7 Habits, Linda Fox from the Stephen Covey Foundation, she said that because we're applying now, we're working as a school to become a lighthouse school. If that happens in January, we will be the first school in the English-speaking Caribbean to be awarded that status. There's 245 schools, I think, throughout the world who have reached the status of a leadership school, and only 45 outside of America. 200 are in America. The definition of what makes you a leadership school, it's a whole long process, but the final word is international recognition of internal transformation. And that is not at all based on buildings or premises or campuses or whatever. That is based on, and she said that she travels all over the world, that when she comes into a school campus, from the minute she enters the campus, she can usually tell
what's happening,
whether or not the internal transformation is going on.
Yeah.
We are so built and stayed and addicted to external transformation in this country until, and I've preached this all my life. I've talked this all my life in terms of, I have seen people spend $500 on a suit and $600 on a hairstyle or whatever, and yet inside they are empty and hungry and shallow and yearning and desiring of something by which to guide their life and live their life. I had a friend who would call me and say he would get up every night. He had eaten a big supper. He had a snack before he went to bed. The middle of the night, he would get up and go to the refrigerator because he was still hungry. And he said, "But Reg, I can't hold any food." It's like, listen, friend, this is what's going on. This is not hunger.
No.
Your soul is craving something more. But yet a lot of people, and I know don't start to talk now because our churches don't even know how to do this, to attend to the needs of the people. And if education fails and the church fails, then I don't know where we're left and what's going to happen to...
It becomes a very difficult thing, you know. It becomes a very difficult
But this is where we, again, and it starts before you get to further education. It really ought to. But we need empowered people.
Yes.
We need people who can take control of their own lives. And maybe that's one of the things that the establishments are afraid of. Maybe that's one of the things that the ego resists, that someone else should chart their own course and I should not chart it for them. But when we have a greater population of persons who are able, at whatever their level is, to say, I may not be as far along as you are on this path, but this is where I am and I'm starting here and I'm going to start to take ownership of what is happening with me as opposed to trying to outsource responsibility for my life to the school or to my employer or to the government. That's when we're going to start to see real changes. And it is slow. We have to be a patient people. It takes generations.
Yeah.
But we're not to lose heart because of that.
No.
And we're not to disregard the work that we do with just one individual.
Yeah, if somebody is sharing the flame is lit, and that's cause for hope.
Yes.
You know, and so we have to keep pressing the case. This person ain't all that hopeful. They said this country isn't serious. Invest into people.
I mean, it's unfortunate, but we are looking for the evidence. And yes, we do need people to invest. But I'll tell you this: everyone is capable of investing in a life. And that is whether you are a teacher, whether you are a professional, whether you are a politician, whether you are unemployed right now. No one is unable to invest in a human life and help someone change the trajectory that they're on.
Someone says, listening to Dr. Eldon, he comes across as so genuine, which translates into his efforts being so effective. Listening to the experience he related about the lady whose intellectual inadequacies made her take a backseat makes me want to reach out to him. He just seems to care. Is it possible to connect with him? So there you go.
Wow, thank you so much.
Okay.
Let me say that most of my life I've tried to make sure I think there's two things that help to guard my life. And it was very interesting when Mr. Lang, you talked earlier about learning financial success and how you manage your finances from your parents. This was never more true for me, in as much as, like, my mom and dad had a philosophy that they couldn't buy anything unless they could pay for it. So I grew up never able to buy a car, never able to get a house, because I never could get enough money to pay for it. And I had this in my mind that I'm not supposed to borrow money because you don't get something you can't afford.
Right.
But the other thing my mom did was she trained me in this ethics methodology of inclusivity. And I think most of what has happened with me over my years of life has been to include, not to be able to exclude people. I don't like situations where people feel as though they're not included and they're not worthy.
Right.
And they are not, like, they're on the periphery. And so part of my ministry, my efforts in work and in education has been always to try to pull people in and to make them feel okay and to let them know that it's okay for them to be where they are. And that's an incredible thing. And if you look around these islands, it's not only Nassau. There's a lot of people in the Family Islands that don't feel as if they belong and don't know where to go to feel safe, and it's one of the things we have to do. We have to take care of each other,
and that's a Jesus quality for sure, eh?
That's a quality, man. That's the true essence of the gospel.
If you examine his conduct and behavior, all the people say, "Listen, man, they can't be hanging around with you, not them." Jesus was right there hanging around with them, eh? And that's what it takes. That's our text says, Mr. Lang. It's been said, anything worth knowing is not taught in a classroom. Having said that, it is ironic that I did not discover the meaning of education in a classroom. It was in a book I read that described education. Here is the definition. Education is derived from the Greek word eduko, which means to draw out from within. The educational system, in my humble opinion, does the opposite. That is, the system puts into from without rather than draw out from within. The rich does not work for money, only the poor and the middle class work for money. The school system prepares people to work for money. The rich have money and people work for them. Empowerment means to be powered from within. The prefix EM means in. What is needed is intuition, meaning to be taught from within. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. We've got a call on the line. We can take that call. Go ahead, caller. We're listening to you.
Yes, good afternoon, Shibato.
Hi, how you doing?
Dr. Elder and company. I'd just like to commend Dr. Elder. I happen to be one of the first persons he came in contact with as a youth worker on the Lutheran.
Okay.
And he, along with Rosie Gibson, promoted and also gave a number of the young people on the island the opportunity to grow and come into their own. I'd like to publicly thank him. He and Rosie Gibson, when he came to Serenity back in the mid-70s as a youth worker when he came back from England. So, Reg has done a lot for the young people in the Methodist Church, and he has surely done a lot for persons and brought a lot of the leadership qualities for young people in the Bahamas. I'm one, and my name is Carl Kulman. I'm happy to say that he brought out some of the leadership qualities that I possess today, and I could take along throughout my life straight through.
Amen. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Carl. I thought first it was Michael until halfway through your conversation.
You know what they say? May the work I have done speak for me. You've got another call on the line. Go ahead, caller. We are listening.
Good afternoon, Mr. Lyon. Good afternoon to you again.
Good afternoon. How you doing?
You know, I always enjoy your show, and today you've done it again. Yesterday was awesome, and today is doubly awesome. So
thank you. We tried. Thank you.
Your guest is, oh my goodness, I just can't find a way to describe the knowledge. And, the thing about it is, it is so true that if we try to empower others, or we try to include others in our lives, we are richer for it. And if we try to help, we are much richer for it. We'll be satisfied. We won't have that hunger. Like his friend said, he was hungry although he had eaten. You won't have that because that is because you would have fed someone else.
True.
And in doing so, oh my goodness, I just honestly, my daughter went to Queen's College. When she finished school, she said, Mommy, I'm not ready to go away yet. She said, I'm too young. And so what I did was, before I found out who was doing, classes, and Queen's College at the time, they were doing college, a year of college prep.
Right.
And so I sent her there. And what she learned in that 1 year. And it was really, really saying, Mommy, I am glad I did not go away before I did that. So I think they always had something, and now it's even more richer than it was before. And I congratulate all of you up there for the topics you bring on and for the people you bring on in the same part. And I'm just hoping that our people are listening and trying to help in whatever way they can. Because I try to do my little bit. So I thank you. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate you. Thank you so very much for calling and saying so.
mean, the
Well, the thing about this that excites me is that lady that just called, she has it right there that everybody can do something.
Yeah.
The misconception is that only trained people or academic people, educated people or whatever. I had an aunt, my mom's sister, who she was not ever married. She never had any children of her own. Her job in the little settlement of Current where I grew up was that she would take the entire afternoon to visit the shut-in and elderly. That was her ministry.
Mm-hmm.
That's what she did.
Mm-hmm.
Other people didn't have time to go to see them because they were too busy working.
Martin Luther King said that, Jesus said that he that would be greatest among you must be the servant of all. He said the essence what that meant was that everyone can lead.
Absolutely.
Because everyone can serve.
Yes, absolutely.
Everyone can serve.
Yep.
When I do leadership seminars, one of my penultimate sessions is on love, and I say to the people, I know your reaction to this notion of love becomes very fuzzy-wuzzy and so forth. I said, but let me ask you a question. If I said to you that the person who leads my organization is patient, kind, long-suffering, that this person is humble, that this person believes, is hopeful, what would you say? Oh, I could work for a person like that. That's a great leader. I said, well, that's the qualities of love.
Mm-hmm.
I said, and those are qualities that call for circumstances that are almost altogether negative. I don't have to be patient where the circumstances are good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to be long-suffering where I don't have to suffer long. I don't have to be kind where I'm not giving something and not getting something. I don't have to be humble where other people are saying they're better than me. All the circumstances in which love is called upon are negative circumstances. But I ask people, I said, let me ask you, who is the stronger? He that must be patient versus the person for whom the patience is required? Or he that must suffer long, or the patient with whom you have to suffer long? I said, so love is strength, great strength. And so this is what is called for when you do what you're doing, when we serve, is we get to show and demonstrate the only thing on this planet ultimately that matters. Right now we could solve South Korea, North Korea, and the United States' challenge with each other. If love became Kim Jong's nature and Mr. President Trump's nature. Right now, if both of them embrace that, they'd say this is all nonsense. We should not jeopardize our folk with no nuclear challenge.
Yes, I think, you know what I think? I think we should have a forum on this program on the basic understanding of servant leadership.
Yeah.
And talk about that so that becomes more of a general topic for everybody to hear. And because leadership is such an important thing, and I think this is the most interesting quality of Queen's College right now. People may think the most interesting part is the fact that we get so many high grades and the grades are so good. I applaud that. I'm with that. I'm working for that. But the fact that we're trying to get a student, we have a leadership day every year where we invite parents and people from the community to come in. The students lead that. One of the greatest thrills in life is to walk around Queen's College and have kids, students from the ELC foundation years in grade 1 take you and teach you the habits as they give you a tour around their classroom and explain what win-win is. You get that, right?
I've had that experience.
Right, I believe I was there when you was there, yes. Incredible stuff.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Z Live. I'm Shivago Lang, your host. So glad to have you with us. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion with Dr. Eldon and Latasha Strong. We'll be right back after this break. I just can't keep living
this way. Your insurance policy is a legal contract between you and your insurer. When purchasing insurance, make sure that you give your agent all the details and that you fully understand the contract. Pay your premium on time and keep your contract and all receipts in a safe place. Any breach of the contract could result in cancellation of the policy or non-payment of a claim, and failing to make payments can cause your policy to lapse. For more information, visit www.icb.gov.bs. This message was brought to you by the Insurance Commission of the Bahamas.
Double your data with BTC Mobile. When you sign up for a $25 plan, you will receive 12 gigs of data. Or sign up with a $35 data plan and receive 30 gigs of data now until the end of November. All you have to do is dial *205#. Select your plan and experience limitless data with BTC Mobile. Because when you're a part of the BTC family, the possibilities are limitless. BTC Mobile, the bigger, better network.
Newsflash, a hurricane is approaching, so don't be left in the dark. Purchase your 1,000, 2,000, or 3,000 watt Maxon inverter. Then get your Epic battery starting from $99. Go green. Get your kit now while supplies last and keep your TV, radio, fan, and a light on. Once the current comes back on, put your Epic battery on charge with your trickle charger. You know you're going to need it again. Call Epic now and ask about the special on jumper and air pump combos. Check out the newspaper for more information.
For over 2 decades, Bamboo Shack has been serving your favorite snacks. Golden cracked conch and fish fingers, chicken fried to perfection, burgers and combos, cracked chicken at all 6 locations, and delicious dinners at Bamboo Shack in the Southwest Plaza and drive-thru. Breakfast at Nassau Street, Carmichael, and Soldier Road. Follow Bamboo Shack 2421.
Just talking with this good folks from the Queens College Center for Further Education. You know, platforms like these can be a part of that learning process too, and that's one of the things that I built into the show. This is Guardian Radio is smart talk. That's its motto, and the extent to which we can provide learning opportunities for people here is what we ought to absolutely do. And I think that emphasizing further education is just not a luxury for us in the country. It is a necessity. Yes. It is what we have to do. So you have people who may be interested in contacting the center about its offerings. Talk to them about what they need to do and what they can do. And I assume that the courses do have a cost attached to it.
Yes,
to them.
They are. We try to make them as affordable as possible, and they range from anywhere around $80 for a workshop.
Not bad, not bad.
And then up to a few $100s for a course, depending on the technical skill that's involved.
Okay.
So you can do a course that's only about $200 as opposed to a course that's closer to $500 because of the technical expertise of the instructor. Because we do believe in getting, the best that we can to do our courses. If you needed to find out the exact pricing, you could call us at 3931666 extension 263. But we also have the cost printed on our fall offerings flyer, which is available on our Facebook page.
Okay.
It's also available on the Queens College website, which is not Queens College. It is QC Henceforth, HENCEFORTH, henceforth.com.
Okay. And that is, I imagine it is conceivable that you could have a 12th grade student, 11th grade student taking a course with their mommy, their daddy, their brother, their sister, their uncle, their auntie, because they just are interested in the courses as well.
Absolutely. We had a wonderful group of teenagers doing a playwriting course just a few months ago. We have had, in our photography course, we've had adults. I believe in mid-stage learning. I love it. I love it. I love that everyone is a teacher and everyone is a student, and the interaction that they have together, you can all enhance each other's learning journey. So yes, it's not just the out-of-school adults. If you have a teenager that is interested in any of these areas, the time is available for them to come out for an evening session, absolutely, we welcome them.
Dr. Eldon, you're not teaching any classes in empathy, in grief management.
Yes, we're going. In fact, over the weekend, I was texting back and forwards with one of my friends who has just lost one of his best friends. And when my brother-in-law died, we were texting all the way through that. And I just asked him the other day, I said, are you ready to start a grief recovery course with me? And he said, we can start right now, I'm ready, because I am still hurting, and I thought this thing was going to get better. It's getting worse. It's like I am still crying. And people feel a lot that grief is something that you pass through, and there's a beginning and an end. It isn't. It's a journey. It changes, takes new shapes. You never, ever get over it completely, but you do learn to accommodate your life in different ways.
Right.
So I was just thinking that we need to run that course again. Let me tell you, one of the other areas that I'm interested in is that I've got a number of friends who are not, they're in their 50s, 60s, maybe younger, maybe older, and they have lost connection with the church, for instance. And I teach a course called Theological Thinking, or How to Think Theologically. And it basically takes a person through what they have learned as their beliefs, which have been embedded into them since they were kids, and what they have learned by deliberately processing and choosing. And a lot of us cannot say what we believe.
This is true. Separate and apart from what we have been indoctrinated about.
Absolutely. And you know, a lot of my students, I said, you know, I don't want you to ever think that you have to be like me theologically, because that will upset me a great deal. But also, what you can't do in here in this class is tell me that you believe something because the Bible says so. Because I could tell you a lot of things that the Bible says, and you may get very, very upset and confused. So one of the things I want to work with is getting a good group of serious-minded people who want to do some deep journeying with their faith.
Interesting.
And bring together 3 or 4 facilitators who are from different theological backgrounds, and to see if we can create a movement whereby people start to get in touch, because all of these people tell me that they still are in relationship with God. They haven't lost their soul connection with God, but they just can't see it mirrored in the church because they don't think the church represents what that is.
When I was in university in Canada, I made a decision. I decided that I was going to essentially set aside everything that I had learned in the way of religion. And then I determined that I was going to then now investigate religion, but read nothing written before 1967, because that's the year I was born. So I then ended up reading some books by St. Augustine and the likes, and it was amazing to me that in the course of doing that, my faith went back to piety.
Wow.
That essentially what had been a faith born of this overt legalistic sense of duty became a reflection on what it means to manifest the characteristics of God, which principally was piety, which doesn't mean sitting small, it means sitting right with Him and in Him. And so it was that kind of...
See, you're right. And most, with all of the what's happening in worship and churches and faith building, and few of us ever emphasize the whole justice issue in terms of what does God say about justice and how we're to live with each other. And it's like I'm challenged with it every day, because it's like you can't come to me with injustice and then claim to be one of God's servants and agents. The two just don't gel. They're not congruent. It doesn't work. And it's so exciting, man. This whole future that we have shaping up here for some of the work.
You guys let us know. Let us know. We'd love to keep folks up to date. We'd love to talk to you some more about some of what you're doing.
Yeah, so let's talk about servant leadership and how Bahamian people can all of us can work together to influence people to serve.
We've got a text here says, I'm enjoying your show. You and your guests are doing an awesome job. Thank you very much for saying so. Mr. Lang, let your guests know that I am interested in the theological project that he is working on.
Okay.
Well, stay tuned for some more information. We got some folks here trying to be helpful. I think there's a storm coming. It's called, oh no. They said the storm coming. It's called the Mark of the Beast. Any final words before we wrap up?
We just want to thank you very much for having us on, and we are very excited about the upcoming term. We want to encourage listeners to get in touch with us, and like I said before, if we have something that will work for where you want to go next in your career or your personal development, then absolutely. And if we don't, we will certainly try to help to steer you where you need to be.
Now, do the terms run
Yes, we start in September. Okay. Yes, it starts with the school term. We run from September until December, just before the Christmas break. We start again in January, and we run until end of May, early June. So we will always have a full ad with all of the courses for the term come out probably about 2 weeks before the start of the term.
Okay.
So something will come out again in December. And of course, we are praying for everyone's safe passage through Hurricane Irma.
Absolutely.
We are asking that everyone just adhere to whatever guidelines are put out there, and we're trusting God that this is going to pass over us without any loss.
Indeed.
Yes, and I especially want to say a word of encouragement and peace to the people in the Southwest Bahamas and down in the islands. I know you went through this before, and it looks like you're going to go through it again, but rest assured that God has not forsaken you or left you. God is very much there with you, and we are praying for everybody's safety. And thank you, Mr. Lang, so much. We want to partner with you further and get you to teach some of our courses and come in here and be a part of this.
I'm here, Ministry of Works. Someone says garbage has not been collected from off the beaches along Orange Hill Beach. Going west, all the litter left by nasty beachgoers is sitting alongside the beach. And they're looking for some help. God bless you, and thank you very much, both of you again.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Z Live. I'm Shivago Lang, your host. So glad that you were able to join us. Today's Shanique Miller's up next with The Conversation. God bless you and have a wonderful, wonderful evening.
To take a stand. Everybody, come take my